Did you know you can spot a bad company just from their job post, during the interview, and even within few days working for them? Oh yes, you can. However, some of us are so drawn to having a job that we forget to look at certain bits and pieces that could actually make you to know if that company is a right or a wrong fit for you. However, I'm going to be dishing out today some tips on how to spot a bad company like a pro. Welcome back. If you're seeing me for the very first time, my name is Naomi Tato. I work and I reside in the United Arab Emirates. I do videos of lifestyle, small talks, and travel. So if that's what you want to be part of, you can click on the red subscribe button and join my beautiful community for free. To make this video very easy for comprehension, I'm going to break it into 3 parts. The first part is going to be how to spot a bad company from the job post. The second one is going to be how to spot a bad company during interview or when you've been invited for their interview. And the third one is going to be how to spot a bad company just by working with them only for a few days. So without further ado, let's get to how to spot a bad company from their job post. The first sign of a bad company from the job post is not having a website. Copy the company name and put on Google search to actually know what the company is into. And please, if you don't find that company on Google, that's a sure sign that that company is not a very good one. If you don't see the company on Google, it's either 3 of this. 1 is either a startup company and they are still doing some try and error method, or 2, the company is fraudulent and is probably hiding from something, and 3, the company is not looking to hire like that. Like the first point, probably they are a startup and whoever they are hiring at that point is definitely going to be like a try and error method. So they'll just be playing with human labor, and at the end of it all, they will not be able to pay you a salary. However, that company that doesn't really have a website, but when you go over to Facebook or Instagram, you see their small tiny pages with just small number of followers and probably 1 star, just be very, very careful. Run away as far as your legs could carry you, because it signals a lot of danger everywhere. Okay, so the second sure sign on how to spot a bad company from the job post is poor reviews. I'll always advise people that are close to me, always try as much as possible to get the reviews of the company before you even go in for their interview. I know some people will be asking, what are reviews? What are reviews? When you see a job on Indeed and you see stars like this, those are reviews. You see some companies, very massive companies, having 1 star, 1.1, 2.1, and when you go to read the review is bad management, bad management, bad management. My darling, flee from such companies. Honestly, there was a time that when I was applying for jobs, I took looking at the reviews very seriously, and when I saw a company that has below 3, listen clearly, below 3 stars over 5, I don't want to have anything to do with that company. There was a point in my life like that, below 3 stars, and when I go into the reviews, it's probably bad management, bad management, bad management. The truth is, I will not want to work for such company, because you see people applying for a job, you see when they go into the reviews, it's bad management, bad management. The time frame of those comments by ex-employees and present employees, it's still within the time frame you're applying for the job, and they're telling you bad management, and you think you're going to be Jesus Christ to make things right in that company. My brothers and sisters, you're joking, okay? Because if a company has something like a 1.1, 2.1, the reviews are so bad. In 30 reviews or 40 or 50 reviews, you see only 1 good thing there, just know probably that company is a very bad company. You have to flee away from them like ASAP. So the third way, or the third sign to know a bad company just from the job post, is when they have to incorporate multiple jobs into one. I don't know how to explain this, but when you see cumulatively, you will definitely see a job, the right procurement officer, CUM, that CUM, administrative assistant. And because you're so much in need of a job, you apply for it. You definitely see executive assistant, HR, or cumulatively procurement manager, and you take the job. There are certain jobs that can be incorporated together, because when you see something like receptionist, cumulatively administrative assistant, some of the jobs in the companies are similar to one another, so they can easily put those two jobs together. That means you'll be receiving guests in the front office as a receptionist, and probably you'll be doing some small administrative works like documentation and so on, which is okay. But when you see two diverse roles, procurement officer and executive assistant, those are two diverse roles with very, very broad job description, and the company takes upon itself or takes upon themselves to put it at one. Be very, very, very careful, because it means you are going to work yourself to death in certain companies. And newsflash, when you always see jobs like that, cumulatively this, the salaries are always very meager. So my brothers and sisters, flee away from me. As much as your legs can carry you, flee away from them, because they are going to drain you spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and every of the leads that you know, okay? So flee away from them. On the final side on how to spot a bad company just by looking at the job post is when you see repeated or reoccurring job posts from a particular company. If you are active in the job market and you see a particular job by a particular company that comes up every after 90 days, every after 40 days, every after a couple of days or weeks or months, be very, very watchful. It therefore means probably the person they hired for that job post or for that job position could not cope with either the culture or with either the way the company handles things, or simply the company is one of those companies that have the hire and fire culture. They are just there to hire and fire for no good reason. Okay, so let's get to how to spot a bad company during the interview or when they've invited you for the interview. My darling, my brothers and sisters, we know there is a mad rush. You want to work, but you need to be eyes open. Your eyes need to be open. You need to be very vigilant of very, very tiny details. So on our number one on how to spot a bad company during the interview or when you're being called for an interview is when the company's location is in a business center. I don't know how it works in other places of the world, because as I'll normally sound it, I've always just live and work in the United Arab Emirates. But here in the United Arab Emirates, we have some things called business centers. Business centers are where you can hire for probably for short term, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, probably sometimes some people rent it for 1 year, some people rent it for 2 years. And as I said earlier, most of those companies that don't have websites, they are always located in business center, because one of the reasons is sometimes they are just startups and they are trying to do trial and error methods. Okay, they're still trying to do trial and error method to see if the business is going to work forward or is not going to work forward. So most companies like that is red flag already. If you're someone that want to have your visa for those in the UAE, and if you're someone that really wants to grow in your career, those are companies that you don't want to find yourself in. So if you receive the call for an interview and they tell you business center, be very, very skeptical. It may be a startup, and probably sometimes it's just rented to conduct the interview, and after the interview you'll never find them there whatsoever. So be very vigilant. I have friends that have companies, their companies are in business center and they have employees, and it's an amazing setup. However, majority, especially for those in the UAE, 99% of those companies in business center will not do you good. So when they just tell you come to this business center, office number 1, A, B, see, just know something is up. You can go there to get the experience of an interview, but don't take them seriously, honestly, if they don't have a website, or probably if they are doing cumulatively HR, cumulatively administrative assistant. Be very, very careful, because companies like that, you work for them, you stress for them, and at the end of it all, you want to come one morning, they are nowhere to be found, and they've not paid you salary. So be watchful. On the second point on how to spot a bad company during the interview, if they cannot care for their office, when you go in for the interview and get into their office, be very, very watchful. Don't be timid. Look at the chairs, look at the table if it's dusted. Just from looking at the way the office looks, you'll be able to tell if that company can pay your salary or not. If those chairs you are sitting on waiting for them to interview are termite ridden, okay, and you think in your head that if they cannot change a chair where they bring in their clients, they are definitely going to pay you a salary, then you would be a joker. If they have not been able to get a cleaner to wipe off the dust on those tables, then it means your job is going to be a cleaner job with operation manager, with HR manager. You are just going to be what the Frenchman call un peu de tout. And at the end of it all, they will come up with one story or the other. And trust me, let's be honest with the fact, and they will not be able to pay you. If they cannot care for their office, they will always have one or two things to tell you when it comes down to the salary. So be very watchful. On the third one on how to spot a bad company during the interview is when you are in the interview, when they are asking you questions. My brothers and sisters, don't sit quiet. Don't be the person that is ready upstairs to answer every question they have for you. However, you are not ready to ask them any questions. Be very careful. Learn to ask your prospective employer questions. For example, if you go in for the interview and they did not, or they don't have any good thing to say about the person who held the position before you, trust me, you'll be next in line. They will not have anything good to say about you, even if you spill your blood. So be very, very careful. And as I said earlier, ask questions. If you have to ask them what happened to the other person who was handling the position before now, and they cannot even answer you, or they tell you the person was being terminated, ask why the person was being terminated. And if you ask them within that year, or within the space of 2 years, how many people have held the position you are being interviewed for, and they cannot answer you, it's a red flag. And they have a high turnover in that particular job, don't waste your time. It's a very, very big red flag. As I said before, don't waste your time, because you are not going to act like Jesus Christ there to make things change. It means the problem is not with the people they are hiring, the problem is with them. So on the last point on how to spot a bad company during the interview is when they have to constantly remind you of how they are family. It's okay for them to say it once. Oh, we are family here. Oh, it's okay. But when in every speech they have to make, be the HR is trying to say something, I say we are family. The other manager, we are family. This other one, we are family. If they have to tell you over and over about they being family, be very, very careful, because most companies use that word we are family to hide toxic cultures. No matter how much they do things together, no matter how much they are a team player, your colleagues or the company you work for will never be family. So sometimes they play with those words. If they've seen potential in you, if they want to hire you, they'll start playing with those words to get you on their side. And when you hear that often, just know they are trying as much as possible to hide a bad culture. So be very, very careful. Don't fall a victim, because I will tell you for free that those companies who always tell you about being a family will be the company in which your mental health will be at stake the highest. So be very, very careful. Don't fall a victim. Okay, so let's get to the last session, which is how to spot a bad company after the interview or just immediately when you start work. The first sign to spot a bad company immediately after the interview or when you start work, or when you are being asked to start work, it's when they tell you you have to work on trials. I'll always tell those who are close to me, be very, very vigilant if they have to tell you to work on trials for more than 72 hours. Honestly, if you have to work for a company that tells you, be it hospitality, be it service, that tells you you have to be on trials for more than 72 hours, run away. Because especially for those in the UAE, you will always find this complaint, oh, I had to work for trials for 2 weeks. What are they trying you for? Newsflash, an employer that wants to hire you will hire you regardless. An employer that has interest to hire you will hire you regardless. Regardless, without trial, will hire you and try to train you. Maybe someone is going to come here and say, oh, it's different with the service. Okay, it could be different with the service. However, it should not be more than 72 hours. That's 3 days, if I'm not mistaken. It should not be more than 3 days. Anything that has to do with trial, more than 3 days, they'll definitely not want to hire you. You're going to get in a long struggle with them to hire you. And sometimes for those in the UAE, they've taken your passport, they've taken everything, that they have to start making your visa, but they are telling you about trials for over 2 weeks. And some of my brothers and sisters will sit there to do the trials for 2 weeks. I don't know how it works, but myself, I'll speak for myself, because I've never done trials. I have never done trials in my entire being since I was here a decade ago. I've never done trials, because if probably you don't have the skills or the etiquette of a waiter, of a waitress, the first day they can show you on how to handle the plates and the trays and pour water in the glass. The first 2-3 days you have to replicate the training, and if it's not so, they have to send you a packet. You see people who have been for trials for months and they're still saying on the trials. And the most disturbing part of it all is people who have been in the UAE for 6 years, 7 years, still fall prey. I was telling a friend the other day, how would you have been in the UAE for more than 6 years, they're telling you to do trials for 1 month and you accept. I told him, leave that company immediately. And newsflash, they did not hire him. He worked for more than 6 weeks. These 6 weeks, they did not hire him. He was still on trials. They refused paying him. He had to call the police. Anything that has to do with trials and more than 3 months, leave. No matter the matter, leave. On the next sign on how to spot a bad company after interview or when you start working is when they have to tell you about visa quotas. As I said earlier, just because I reside in the United Arab Emirates, this particular point, I'm going to make it about the United Arab Emirates. If you hear a company, you've started working for a company, they ask for your document, you give them your document, and then they come later, probably after a few days, to tell you, oh, our visa quota has this thing, we are waiting for the other quota to open. When you hear about the visa quota, run, because it means they will not do you the visa. Anything that has to do with visa quota, run as far as your legs can carry you. Hallelujah. If you are not in the HR department and you get to hear about visa quota, it definitely means they are not willing to hire you anymore. You will start hearing about visa quota. Do you work in HR? Because apart from HR, no one is supposed to know how many visa quotas. Those are internal HR discussions that you as an employee are not supposed to know. So be very wise. If you're in a company, they tell you about visa quotas, flee. Just keep down everything you are doing. I'm saying it from experience. Keep down everything you are doing and run away, because they are not going to keep you in that organization. On the next sign on how to spot a bad company, few hours working, is when the employer decides for you to start immediately. I've seen people who have gone for job interviews and they've been told, or they are being told, to start immediately. This one is a little bit tricky. However, a company with life and work balance would always give time for you to put up yourself, even if it's 3 days before you resume work. But But a company that will tell you to start working immediately, maybe they could be in dining, but even if they were in dining, they would have made provisions for that position before even trying as much as possible to hire someone to come and take it immediately. Honestly, companies with good corporate laws, company with work and life balance would not tell you to start immediately. They can have a start date. If that company tells you to start now, you've not discussed your salary, you've not discussed anything, and they are asking you to start now, be very, very watchful. Because sometimes for those in the UAE, you can travel from Dubai to Abu Dhabi, right? And they tell you to start immediately, knowing that you are from Dubai. Run. Because it means there you will not have any work-life balance whatsoever. Sometimes we are so drawn to start work that we don't even do calculative moves. We just go, and you go in, and when you get there, you will know the whole thing is full of rubbish. So be very careful. If they ask you to start now, learn to propose a time that you could start. Give a reason why you think you cannot start now. And if they try as much as possible to make you to start immediately, be very careful. It's a very, very bad sign. So on the last note on how to spot a bad company, as soon as you start working is when the company is made up of one and the same nationality. This can be a little bit tricky if you are not in the United Arab Emirates or you're not in the Middle East. You will not understand. However, I've heard people complain, even people in Canada are complaining of the same thing nowadays. Like one particular nationality and race, from top management right up to the flies in the company, everybody is just a particular race. I've heard the complaint even from people living in Canada, and that's the world we live in today. However, if you are being hired in a company and you go there and probably you meet one kind of people, one race from top to bottom, I always advise people try as much as possible not to fall in that milieu or in that company per se, because you will be excluded in everything they do. Honestly, it's a sign that you will not be able to blend in the culture whatsoever. If you think you are that one person with a very thick skin that can really handle things and handle situations like that, and handle even if you're working in a place where the culture does not really seem okay, then you can go for it. And sometimes when you're working with a particular race and you are the only person of a different national or a different race, you tend to be excluded even in communications, because those races will always feel comfortable in communicating ideas, communicating vital information, communicating everything in their mother tongue or in their own language, which is going to make you to just be there and you'll be very bewildered. And the truth is, when it happens like that, information, vital information, which you are supposed to be involved in, you would tend to be excluded from. You can be bewildered to ask yourself where you really are, because you will not even find a place to blend. Okay, so if you're that 1%, if you see that just the first few days, because probably during the interviews you'll not have to see everybody that is there. However, when you start working, you start seeing everybody that is there, and if you know you'll not be able to blend in, it's going to be hard, then leave as soon as your legs can carry you, because trust me, you'll be the scapegoat for every wrong thing that goes on in that company. Okay, so be very watchful. Thank you very much, guys. It's your girl Nahomi T. I come to the end, okay, of this wonderful episode. Hope you really did enjoy it. Thank you so much, guys, for always joining me. If you're new here, click on the red subscribe button to join my community, because I'll be bringing you very, very good and motivational topics and various tips on how to maneuver through life from my own experiences. So thank you so much, and bye for now. Bye-bye.